Hey YouTube, this is David Easterbrook here. Today I'm going to be pruning a privet bonsai. Privet is Ligustrum obtusifolium. It's a Japanese privet. It was actually dug out of a garden here in Quebec in 1978, this tree. It's a very good example of a multiple trunk root or trunk connected style. We call it a kabudachi style in Japanese. So it's many trunks sharing the same root system. They're all straight trunks, so it's a good example also of a straight trunk bonsai. So today what I'm going to be doing is reducing the new growth. Now I defoliated this tree only not even 2 weeks ago. It's a very vigorous strong grower, and already it sent out all new growth, and you have to prune the new growth to let the light in, otherwise you get dieback inside the tree. So today I'll just be shortening all the new growth to reestablish all the foliage planes and let the light in. So not only is it good for the tree, but also aesthetically it'll reestablish the foliage planes, make the bonsai look a lot nicer. First of all, I'm going to cover the tree because I hate sweeping up all the little branches and leaves. So I like to keep it nice and clean. So I always use a few cloths here to cover it up. That way it's a lot less work cleaning up afterwards. Here we go. All right, when you're pruning privet or ligustrum, always, or any bonsai for that matter, always start from the apex, working your way downwards toward the bottom branches. With ligustrum, what you should be doing, ligustrum or privet are opposite budding trees, so rather than alternate budding. So the first set of buds at one internode would be vertical or horizontal, and the next would be the opposite. If the first is horizontal, the second would be vertical. So you want to try to prune back to a set of horizontal buds, and you cut back. You don't need to cut back to the first one, but just try to cut back to a bud that is within the silhouette of your ligustrum bonsai. Typical to have some leaves that are larger than others, and it's not very attractive. Also, it stops the light from getting in. With privet, you don't have to wait until the new growth hardens off. It's already, just pruning it back, it'll be sending out new growth in no time at all. So it's a very good tree for using as a bonsai, even a first timer's bonsai. It's not very demanding as to soil pH. It likes lots of water. But aside from that, it's a very easy tree to grow and to prune. So I think more people should be using easy to grow trees as bonsai rather than going after the difficult ones. We always start from the top toward the bottom, because that way when the foliage falls, it falls on the lower branches, and when we get to them, it'll fall even further. So that way there's less cleanup to do, and you can see the results as you go along from the top on down. So I think it's preferable to do it that way. Some trees you have to wait until the new growth hardens off, as I said, but this one here is just so accepting of pruning. I mean, generally privets are used as hedging material, so they're well adapted to clipping back all the time, and they form nice tight new growth. These trees are actually a member of the olive family. They're in Oleaceae, this along with olive trees and Forsythia, and so they're very rank growers, easy to grow. In the spring they send out beautiful little white flowers. They're sweetly scented, and toward the end of the summer they form little black fruits that look like miniature olives. So there's some easy to grow aspects, but I think the real feature of this tree is the winter aspect of this tree. When the leaves fall, they turn yellow in the fall and fall. But in the winter, just the bare branches look like lacework, and it's a very, very pretty tree to view in the winter. So that's my favorite time for this tree. Unfortunately, there's not many shows in the winter, so it doesn't get displayed. But this tree, although it's from Japan, is very, very hardy, even here in Quebec and Canada. So you can leave it out during the winter. I just worry a bit about mouse damage, mice and voles. So it's rare that I leave it outside. Most of the time, I'll overwinter it in a very cool room, just above freezing, and it gets through the winters very, very well. It's a tree that's a very, very, very easy to do cuttings of. Also, cuttings, air layers, they grow very well. The only thing you have to watch out with these trees is when you are creating a bonsai, if you try to bend down large branches, they have a tendency to just break off, fall off. And sometimes a whole part of the tree, this is where the trunk was pruned back, but sometimes a whole branch will just pop off with, you know, the least bending. So you have to be very careful about bending this tree. I would advise you to, unless it's new growth, I would advise you just to shape this tree mainly just by pruning. There are many cultivars also of Japanese privets. This is the species itself, but you can find many, many cultivars. I don't like the variegated varieties. I like the green leaf varieties, but there are many, many, many different varieties that you can get. And they're all equally adapted to bonsai. Some have larger leaves. This is a relatively small sized leaf, so it looks very proportional to our bonsai. And I like that. I like the fact that I don't have to go to great lengths to reduce the leaf size. We've got some growth that's inside, that's growing inside, and that we have to sometimes prune off along the branch so that we can literally open it up and let the light get through there. They send out so much growth that you really do have to prune back in the fall, prune back quite hard so that the branches don't become too congested. I had companion to this tree, a mate to this tree, but it was a single trunk specimen that was in the US National Show about 4 years ago. I've since sold it. So this is, aside from a few small privets, and privets make great shohin bonsai because of the small leaves and because of their adaptability to hard pruning. They make great shohin, great miniature bonsai. So I would advise you to add some privet bonsai to your shohin collection on top of that. I do have many very small ones. Maybe at the end of the video I'll take one or two out and show you a few small shohin bonsai that were actually cuttings from this tree itself. Now the leaves had already, it had budded out in the spring. Some of the leaves were quite large, but as I said, I defoliated it about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and it's already sent out all new growth. It's an amazing tree to work with because it's so forgiving, you know. You can do so much with it. The trunks don't thicken up that quickly though. If you want a big thick trunk, you actually have to grow it in the ground. As I said, this tree dates back to before 1978. I collected it in 1978, but it was probably already 10 or 15 years old. Just goes to show you how much time it takes to get a thick trunk. Inside here, the foliage, there's less light. So inside these inside branches that are low down on the tree, I try not to prune them too heavily. I just do a very light pruning so that there'll be more leaves to capture a bit more light and strengthen those branches. So I always prune them less when they're inside the tree. Trying to get this tree ready. Maybe I'll be putting it in a show. There's some shows coming up in the next couple of weeks here in Quebec. It's an unusual style, this kabudachi style. I don't know if everybody likes it, but it's very valid as a bonsai style in Japan. So I think you should have pretty well something of everything in your bonsai collection. So I know I try to have various styles of bonsai. I think each style has its own distinct charms, and that you should be trying to grow bonsai the way they grow in nature. When I found this one, it actually did have the multiple trunks. It has a lot of sucker growth. They always keep coming out of the bottom. And since I collected it, I've actually let a few younger trees grow down below to round out the silhouette so that we get a nice rounded silhouette. So I've actually let some grow, but that's the way it was growing in the beginning. So I always try to bring out the natural style of trees. I don't like to over manipulate bonsai. You could even prune back really big branches at this time of year if you wanted to. They do heal over quickly. They form scar tissue. If you're down in the southern part of the States, I would say that you have to watch out though, because it's a soft wood inside. You have to watch out for termites. I had a friend that got a privet bonsai and brought it down to Florida, and within about 6 months the whole trunk was hollowed out by termites. So I would say watch out if you're down south. Here in the north we don't have any problems. We do have some carpenter ants, but I've never had them in privets, so I don't worry too much about that. We're almost finished. It doesn't take that long to prune prune new growth of a tree. Sometimes the lower branches tend to send out a lot of sucker growth and get too strong. So you have to make sure you prune the lower branches quite diligently. We're almost through, folks. This tree is already, now we're in the end of June. It flowered early in the spring. Generally, I don't like to leave too many fruits on it because, first of all, the flowers are produced at the end of the new growth, and so the tree looks messy if you let it get too long. And the fruits are black, so they're not that impressive. So I just think that it's best to remove most of them or remove them all. I let it flower. I really like, as I say, the smell of the flowers, but I just don't think it's worth keeping the fruit and the tree looking as if it wasn't well trimmed. I think just these couple of smaller branches and we'll be finished. So sometimes it doesn't take that long to spruce up your bonsai. This will have to be done several times during the spring and the summer because it's such a strong grower, and so you really do have to make sure that you get in there and shorten the new growth so that the light will get in and you won't get any bottom branches dying on you. So let's turn it around, see if I've missed anything. Just one or two over here. Okay. You'll notice that the front is a little bit more open right over here, but I don't believe that you should that it should be bare. I always like to have a tree that's three-dimensional. They have foliage or trunks all around. As long as you can see the main trunk and follow it from the base on upwards, I think that's critical. But as for blocking the view, I think it's normal that you should see the front of the tree. But I really think it's important to have this short little tree in front to give the third dimension. If we turn it around to the back, there you'll see that the back trunks are much fuller. They're serving as a screen to stop your eye from going through the trunks and getting lost in the background. So here they're much fuller, and they're a screen to block the view. So I think that also is important, to have back branches or back trunks to give depth, give proportion, but mostly to stop the eye from going through the tree. So I think, aside from just one or two little touch-ups here, folks, I think that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. And again, get out there with your scissors. Bonsai is the art of pruning. Get out there with your scissors. Don't hesitate to prune your trees every day. That's how you acquire a nice bonsai collection. We just finished pruning this big privet grouping here, this kabudachi. Now I'm going to show you some of its shohin progeny. Some of them they're from 10 to 15 years old. They were all cuttings taken from this grouping here. So let's start with this one. This is a little shohin here, two trunk tree, okay, and will reduce the new growth also. As I said, these trees make great little shohin bonsai. They're vigorous, strong growing. They have very short new growth, small leaves, and you can even reduce the size of the leaves even more with defoliations. You can give them several defoliations every year, if you like, every summer, and create very, very tight growth. So this one here is pruned. This little sokan, double trunk shohin bonsai. Let's go on to the next. We have another one here. This one is an ishitsuki bonsai, tree growing partially on a rock. You can see how interesting the tree is. It even has a little jin here, some dead wood. So now we're going to prune it back. Doesn't take much time. The wonderful thing about growing shohin is, they're much easier much faster to prune them and repotting. So, yeah, it's a real pleasure to work with shohin. Personally, I prefer dai bonsai, which are very large bonsai. That's my personal favorites. But don't turn up your nose at any size. There's just as much work and thought and time that goes into a little shohin bonsai like this as into a big dai bonsai. Okay, so this one here is pruned now. Just a light pruning that you have to do every couple of weeks with a privet bonsai. And as I said again, these are all cuttings from the larger one. So you can keep them any size you want. Finally, there's a last one, a beautiful little shohin in a beautiful, beautiful handmade, hand-painted pot. The pot is worth a small fortune. So this is the front over here, right here. Oh, sorry, it is not. It's the back. Okay. The front is over here. I'm sorry. Right here. So right now we can't see it, but once I prune the tree, you'll be able to see into it, and you'll be able to see that it is the front. We have to open up some windows here so that we can see through this foliage. Another reason that we are doing this spring pruning here. And we're creating these beautiful foliage planes. As you can see, the tree is all wired up also. So they're just as much work well, there's not as many branches to wire, but they still have to be wired. You still have to really invest a lot of time in caring for your shohin bonsai. We're almost done with this one also. So we can literally prune three bonsai in a quarter of the time it takes to prune that one big kabudachi privet. So we're just about finished here, just removing some inside growth that's not needed. Now there is too much of an opening here, so we are leaving this little bud here, so it'll fill out this empty space here. Although it's in the back, it shouldn't be empty, so we do need to fill it in. So before you go and remove a branch, always ask yourself, do I need a branch there? Should I prune this branch? Very important to not prune automatically or robotically. When you're pruning, you have to, before each cut, you have to ask yourself, is this branch needed or not? So here we are. This one is done. There's one or two larger leaves that we can remove, so to see into it a little bit better. See those foliage planes? Sometimes with shohin bonsai, you do have to remove large leaves because they're out of proportion to the size of the tree. So we'll just cut off one or two. You can always even reduce the size of the leaf by cutting an outline of the leaf, making it smaller looking. But in this case, we'll just cut them off. We've got enough leaves. Okay, so that's it, folks. This tree is done. Here we see the little tree next to its much older and larger parent. So guys, today we worked on this amazing privet grouping. I hope you enjoyed it. I'd like your comments. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And also we worked on some progeny of this tree, some 10 to 15-year-old cuttings of this tree. So I hope you enjoyed seeing it and that you'll come back for more. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye.